What's up, guys? So a lot of people have been asking me to do kind of like a meta analysis lately. I wanted to hold off until LEL before I did it, but a lot of people kind of seem to be really strong on wanting to see one now. I was kind of asking around Facebook and stuff of what you guys kind of want to see. If there was any questions and stuff that you guys might have for me, and a lot of people were just saying that they kind of wanted to see, like what my thought on the meta was, and how I feel you can maybe counter it. And so I kind of put together like a little group of cards that work well together for their particular rulers, and like why I think the deck is good and what makes the deck good. Of course, to begin with, we have the infamous Feithsing. Feithsing has been one of the best rulers this format because of her ability to generate free advantage. Being able to spawn tokens just for playing cards is just a really good effect because it lets you speed up Gwiber. The Fiethsing Turbo deck mainly consists of, dropped it over there, sorry, Guinevere. Guinevere is the best card in the entire deck. This deck is not a Gwiber deck, it's a Guinevere deck. A lot of people think that if you deal with the Gwibers, then you're good, but dealing with the Gwibers isn't relevant. Gwiber's easier to deal with a lot of different cards. Guinevere isn't. She generates way too much free advantage for Feithsing, especially if you just let her sack all of the tokens. It essentially means no matter how much removal you have for the Gwibers, Guinevere is always going to get to more important cards. It's going to get to hooks. It's going to get to dregs. It's going to just give you everything back. It's going to get to more Gwibers, and they're going to out-resource you. The most important thing about this deck is to stop the Guinevere. If you stop the Guinevere, you should have the answers for Gwiber, and it'll make it so that Feithsing can't recover. And that's why Mikage does so well against this deck. I think that if you were to side Unseen Pressure and Feithsing goes first and goes summon Guinevere, pass, and you go energize Unseen Pressure on Guinevere, and then you follow up on your turn with like a Scorn or something, it's going to be game. There's no way, if Mikage can build up that much time and Feithsing doesn't have Shackles of Ice, there's just no way that it's going to win the matchup. I think Mikage is most likely the best counter for Feithsing, although if she does get off fast enough, there's just nothing you can do. If you can't get the Guinevere off the field, you just pretty much lose. And then Captain Hook is a big part of this deck as well. Captain Hook, of course, deals with special magic stones, which every deck is using right now. It's very, very easy to go Alice Castling, take out a Guinevere or Dragon, summon Hook. It's a little too combo oriented for my taste. I don't know if I would play that if I played Feithsing Turbo. I think just staying on Guinevere and holding advantage and using Gwiber to beat down might be better. But I could definitely see why they like the kind of switch out, especially because it baits out removal. And then we of course have the Gwiber. Gwiber does of course play a big part in the deck. I'm kind of being funny by saying, it's not important. Of course Gwiber is the main win condition of the deck, but Guinevere is essentially what keeps them having resource in order to play these cards. The reason why I think there's decks out there that could potentially be built against Feithsing is because of how easy I think Guinevere is to stop, and I think that Feithsing players don't notice that it is easy to recover for certain rulers if they could stop the Guinevere. However, if you can't, Feithsing Turbo is by far the most consistent deck right now. When people say that this deck is the most consistent deck, that's definitely accurate. I don't argue that kind of statement. It definitely is just really, really fast. Being able to play Regalias to spawn tokens is just kind of free. And then if if your turn one is like activate Regalia, tap for a Ruler's Moria, summon Guinevere, and then you get a token and pass, you just have so much advantage. If they're not playing anything that can energize and stop the Guinevere right then and there, you're most likely just going to lose. There's just not much you can do to come back from that. It lets them set up way too much for such a little resource that it's just crazy. You have to play something that I was thinking essentially as anything that can energize an Unseen Pressure or anything that can energize a Lightning Strike. I've been kind of wanting to mess around with Mars again, but a non-burn version, just to be able to combat the Lightning Strike on Guinevere for energize, and then every Guinevere after that can get hit by Demon of the Crest because it does 400 damage. So I've been kind of thinking about messing around with that, but Fire doesn't have a lot of removal for big threats like Gwiber, so it's like normally for other decks, if you can get rid of the Guinevere early, you can follow up and destroy the Gwibers because like Darkness has a lot of removal, for example, but Red doesn't have that, so I'm not sure if I'm going to mess around with Mars just yet. And then Mikage is the second deck, of course, everyone's talking about right now. This deck is crazy because of Mikage, essentially. Everything else is just free for this deck. I've been saying since this card got released that this is possibly the best ruler effect we've ever seen on a card. Grus Ballesta was one of the most important stones back in the game when it first came out, and it's because you essentially use the card that was free to get rid of cards, so it's just free advantage, and that's exactly what Mikage does. He makes cards like Taro really, really live. He makes it so that late game he's just picking everything off and you can't have any cards. He gains counters for it that have really relevant sides on his, relevant effects on his J Ruler side too. So it's like crazy that he even has that as well. And then to top it off, he of course comes with the entire stealth package. So you get Riza and Melder, which are the best darkness cards right now. A lot of people don't like these, and a lot of people wanted me to talk about them. I love these cards, so it's going to be hard for me to say anything bad about them. I totally get how people are kind of sick of seeing them everywhere, but if you kind of play darkness decks a lot, which is something I've always done quite a bit, the main problem with darkness is you never had a push. You always had like removal. You always had everything you needed. You always had hand discard, which is really important too. This is one of the best cards in the meta right now too, just to get rid of. If you snipe Feithsing where it matters, it slows you down a lot as well. But essentially, what makes stealth good isn't the obvious fact that the Melder is like insane removal and the Riza tutors any card like as big as Melder from your deck, and it's so cheap. That's all like a given, and everyone understands that. It's the amount of 2-for-1s you can do with these cards and the amount of damage you can push with these cards. If your opponent declares an attack with something small and you have a Riza on your set and your standby, you can summon the Riza, block the attack so they lose a card that's already a +1. You set the Melder from your deck, flip the Melder, killing something else that's +2. And if you wait to do that like during your opponent's like if you block the attack with Riza and then they don't have anything else to do, maybe they attack you directly with another card and you let that go through, and then they attack with like a bigger card, you can then summon the Melder and kill the bigger card. And then on your turn, you can attack into the arrested card. It's just so much removal. Like, it lets you get rid of all of their cards for essentially almost no mana whatsoever for like 2, because you're setting it for a standby. And then you get to attack for 1800 to them if you want, or you can just clear out their monsters. So the stealth package is good for that reason mainly. It's just really low cost, heavy bodies that have decent removal built in, and it's just all during quick effects, so it's just crazy. It's essentially like having quick cast, and it's even safe because they can't scorn them out of your hand. It's really hard to deal with cards in a standby, so the mechanic is always going to stay really, really, really strong. Top with a ruler like Mikage, I just think it's really powerful. He's by far, I personally think he's stronger than Feithsing Turbo, but you do have to build a little particular to be able to have a better matchup, so it might give you like a worse matchup against control, so it's kind of in the middle. It's really hard to say. And then Zero, for Zero's Magic Light is very important because it's very low cost removal for Gwiber. Against Feithsing decks, you have this to combat all the Gwibers, but Apollo can get kind of annoying because they just keep getting it back. You don't have much removal for Guinevere, which is an issue outside of Scorn. Zero comes also with the entire stealth package. I think Stealth Zero is very, very strong. The reason why I think Zero is relevant also is because if you use Zero against Feithsing and the Scorn, the Magic, and the Stealth package deals with Feithsing, if you play against Mikage, you also have the advantage of, like, a lot of people don't notice that the weakness of Stealth isn't the fact that, or the weakness of Mikage, I guess I should say, isn't that, like, you can kill his cards enough, or you can counter them, or you can push too much damage. It's the fact that dark decks don't really have a way to deal with Jugglers outside of Black Moonbeam. So if you play Nameless Mist with Zero, and you know that you're safe from Black Moonbeam, you can literally deactivate and start swinging. And unless unless Mikage has double Riza, there's just not anything they're going to be able to do. He can't use Riza to attack into Zero because she doesn't take battle damage. He doesn't have any removal for her unless he top decks a Black Moonbeam, which most people only main one. And then at that point, if your opponent's like top decking a Black Moonbeam, like if you're going to lose to that, that's totally fine. You could just side appropriate. Like, it doesn't happen often enough to like actually consider that like a counter. But once you deactivate Zero early and just start swinging, stealth decks can't do anything. He can't get counters because he can't tag your cards. He can't try to rush you down because not only even if he had swiftness or flying, they're taken away. And you have precision to take out like particular threats if he tries to set up anything scary anyway. So you just pretty much keep going to face with Zero against Mikage and don't let him tag anything so he can't get any counters. And then you can of course set up your Riza and Melders too, which is just extra advantage for you. And then the Zero's Magic Light is also good against if he tries to like attack through Zero, like to you instead, and you don't have any setup because you're low on mana. Being able to remove like a Melder with Zero's Magic Light is really good too, because it just makes him waste all of his cards. So also like losing 1,000 life almost helps you, because I mean like if your opponent loses 1,000 life for playing a Riza, that's like one less hit you have to worry about. So I think the fact that Zero has this package mainly for Feithsing, while being a really good J-Ruler basher against Mikage, actually makes her a really big threat against that as well. Of course, Feithsing can outpace Zero because, like I said, it's harder for her to deal with Guinevere, because even if you main Unseen Pressure, you're not guaranteed the black early on, depending on how you build. You might be able to fit it in, but it might be a little harder. But you can't energize the black anyway. She only energizes white, so it's a little harder to deal with Guinevere, so it makes Feithsing outpace her at times. But if you can snipe with Scorn properly, it shouldn't be as bad. And then some other kind of decks that I think are just worth talking about, but I'm not sure if they're going to be fast enough, is Arla. I did a deck profile on this. It was a version I thought was actually really good against both of those decks, because Artemis is of course 0 cost removal for Gwiber. This combo is very good too because you have 4 counters. Artemis also deals with Mikage because he's flying, and this Arla deck of course uses Death Scythe as well, just for the Ruler's Memoria. So you can just get rid of his imperishable, just shoot him down. Deals with stealth as well, and you have 4 counters, so you can destroy 2 stealth cards, which is also very good. It's also very hard to play around. Like, if I'm not attacking them, and they respond with, like, if I shoot a Riza and they respond with it, because they're trying to, like, outplay you, but I haven't been attacking you, it's like you're going to have to set the Melder anyway, and then I'm just going to shoot the Melder. And if you set, like, a bluff and I kill it, it doesn't matter. Like, you're still losing cards for my free cards, so it's essentially still a 2-for-1. So I think Arla's, like, he could potentially be good. If he had Energized, it would have been a lot better. I almost wish they had just given all the old rulers Energized, since they banned Reflect anyway. But it is what it is. It might not be fast enough. I kind of have to keep messing around with it. But you can play, like, black, white as well. It's like black, white, blue, which is what I played. So then you get, like, the Scorn package and stuff as well to deal with Gwiber and Guinevere and stuff like that. But once again, same problem Zero has, because you're inherently stuck to light early on with the Energized for Zero and just Arla in general. It's really hard to deal with the Guinevere really early, and if they start using Guinevere to gain too much advantage, there's just not much you can do. You can Percival for more bows, but that's only going to get you so far. If it's just Feithsing is really, really fast. And then Shion. Shion's, I wanted to speak about it just because she still is a very fast Captain Hook. The only problem with Shion is of course no Energize. Like I said, that's kind of holding a lot of the old rulers back. But a fast Captain Hook could be really good. You might be able to build like some kind of turbo Captain Hook J-activate deck with like Sacred Elf or something. But the problem is that a lot of people are going to be prepared to handle Guinevere, and anything that's ready to handle Guinevere is also ready to handle like control decks, and that's why it doesn't work. Like if you try to outpace Guinevere by using like a counter Feithsing deck, you just end up losing to Mikage anyway because the control is better in that deck, and so it doesn't do anything. You can main Shackles and Ice in this deck though. You could in Feithsing as well, which is like not terrible, and then you could in some of the other decks as well. But I just want to talk about Shackles of Ice because it does stop Mikage. Just in general, not just for Shion, but in general. And so an early Captain Hook could be strong, but if she goes second, it really slows her down. And then it also really slows her down if she gets barriered. If anyone sides barrier against this deck and she can't like comfortably use Hydromonica, and she has to wait to deactivate, it kind of just makes the whole deck just go to crap. And you can't really main edition hate because since barrier is not seeing as much play, you don't want to like afford having the dead hand. So it's not really that worth it to play Shion, but it's kind of something you can consider. It's something that I've been wanting to kind of mess around with, but I just haven't really had the chance. Gill Lapis, a lot of people will probably think like this is terrible. I've seen like a lot of the better players like Alex Blandon and stuff saying this is really slow and bad right now and people shouldn't consider it. It's only like semi-true. I understand what he's saying. I get how fast Feithsing is, and I'm not trying to say that like this is a complete counter to it, but it's something that I think you could mess around with to kind of potentially see if it could work. The reason why is because of Spacetime Collapse and the combination of Spacetime Collapse with Gill Lapis's automatic ability. So Gil Lapis says that your opponent has to pay one more for Regalia effects, and the 2 recoveries Feithsing has is Guinevere and Apollo. If you can, let's say if you go first, it's also what makes this deck kind of suffer is the fact that there's no Energize. If it did, like if all these rulers had Energize, this would have actually not been a problem. But if you were able to deal with the Guinevere with like an unseen pressure before, if you lose a die roll, it would have been okay. But the problem is that if they set up Guinevere, same problem with all the other decks. It's just really, really fast, and you have to be able to deal with it, and it's kind of hard for this deck to do so. But if you play enough discard, I think you can. And then Space-Time Collapse is really good because if your opponent has a Guinevere, a Gwiber, and like an Apollo, and they're tapped out because they use that their last turn to set that all up, and use Space-Time Collapse, targeting the Apollo and let's say Guinevere or the Gwiber. I'd probably go for the Guinevere because, like I said, it's a lot more important. But if you do that and they don't have the mana to pay to bounce with Apollo, they're essentially getting 2 for 1. And then every Lapis's Dark Storm you use is also a 2 for 1. So it's just you can actually outpace them quite easily. It's just really hard to if they set up a board. And this is really good board removal, but if you don't see this, I play 4 of this and I still sometimes don't see it, and it can get really frustrating. But essentially, if you were to go first, what makes this deck really strong is if you go, it has a stealth package as well. I wanted to add that in there because this is just too good. This is Scorn of Dark Alice, but he can play the stealth package, which is good. The Scorn of Dark Alice, if you go first, can deal with the Guinevere, and then if they think like, let's say if they open a really good hand, like Guinevere, Apollo, Tama, Regalia, and I don't know, Gwiber. And then they draw Arla for turn, right? But you had Scorn the Guinevere. They're going to go activate Apollo, energize for Green Cat, it spawns a token, and then summon Gwiber. And then they have like a Arla in hand or something. And that's it. And they have a full established field. If on your next turn you go Space-Time Collapse, Gwiber, and the Apollo, and they can't use the Apollo to bounce because they're tapped out, like they're losing that game. Like there's just nothing they can do. They have Arla in hand, and like, oh, and the card they drew off Green Cat. And that's it. They have 2 cards in hand. You still have 4. You most likely have like a Riza getting set up. They're now playing catch up and they just can't do anything. Your executioners are now all going to be live. Your Rizas are going to be setting up. It's just really, really good. It has to be like you have to go first with the Scorn and follow up with Space-Time Collapse, but it's not a bad play, and it's something that, like, if they don't open really, really well, it's something that can work even if you go second. It just really sucks that you don't have Energize because just the Guinevere is so good. Like, if you don't stop the Guinevere, they just get so much advantage, it's ridiculous. But that's kind of the ideas I've been having for the meta. Like I said, it's most likely going to change. So if you guys kind of have been seeing anything that seems really good, I don't want to talk about actually LEL stuff too much, like, because like the smallest thing can change the way it looks. So like I think like I'm not trying to bash on anyone, but like, don't try to be the person who like sees, like, let's say Lumia came out and I saw like Lumia lists and it was like right away, like everyone was like just 4 of all the cards they revealed and they were like, how is my Lumia list? And I'm like, you can't do that. Like, you don't know what the rest of the cards are. There's no point in trying to like speculate what you're gonna run without seeing the whole card pool, because like something like 2 cards like this can change an entire meta. So like, what if Lumia gets 2 crazy cards? All the entire deck you just made is just like pointless now. So I don't want to talk too much about what's coming, but as of right now, this is what I think is kind of like relevant. Like I said, the Shion, Arla, and Gil are a little like being kind of like a dreamer. I'm not sure if they'll work too much, but you can kind of mess around with them to see what you like. I definitely Fiethsing and Mikage are a lot better, but I think these are just kind of like good decks to just play around with. They definitely work like pretty well in general. It's just they really, really rely on you winning the die roll, and if you go second, it just really holds you back, especially because you have to go against them having Energize anyway. So if these rulers had Energize, I would actually say that I can argue that I can probably, you know, go against the meta with this. But for now, it's just kind of something to consider and maybe mess around with. But definitely Feithsing is really strong and Mikage is really strong. Just remember, like, if you play against these decks, Feithsing's weakness is getting rid of Guinevere. Always aim to get rid of the Guinevere. It's just the most important card to get rid of. And then Mikage is to just avoid putting monsters on board and try to beat him down with your J ruler. And then if he can't get his counters, it just means he can't do anything. Even if he J activates, he's just a body on board. Like I said, if you have like a 0, he loses his imperishable and flying anyway, and you can precision attack into him, and that's not something he's gonna want. So as long as you can avoid the Black Moonbeam, use Nameless Mist to kind of get an idea of their hand. If you Nameless Mist and hit the Black Moonbeam, it's even better because then there's just no way they're gonna be able to get it back. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions, if you like the analysis, if there's anything that I didn't consider that you think might help for the meta, or it could be kind of like a contender for, you know, this list. Definitely put it in the comment section below. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do, because a ton of more videos will be coming your way, and I'll definitely catch you guys next time.